So for this service, I was asked to do a little short talk about Messy Church, which I'm sure most of you have heard about, at least now. It's been running for quite a long time, but it has gone through some changes recently in how it's going. So to start off, what is Messy Church? Originally, it was set to run once a month as a kind of new expression of church. Quite a while ago, we started it. It aims to make church more accessible to people who struggle with sitting for an hour on a Sunday listening to other people talk. As we have it now, it's a time of worship and learning every week for people with short attention spans, lots of energy, and a love of glitter. Mostly talking about the 5-year-olds, I'm also talking about me. We have some time for free play at the start, followed by crafts and activities, then a short story here in the church with some singing and a prayer, and finished by a meal together around the table back in the hall. We, at the moment, have about 20 children per session, sometimes as many as 30, which is a bit of a squeeze, bringing their parents and their carers with them. A good number of those come every week, with more coming on and off as they're available, and they're not all necessarily church-going folk or from Christian households either. Recently, the children have been bringing along their friends as well, clearly excited to share with them the fun. This recent term, since Easter, we've had an excellent run of sessions going through the story of the Old Testament in order. We started with Noah and the flood, learning about God's faithfulness to those who trust him and his famous promises shown to us in the rainbow. Then came Abraham and Sarah, telling us all about his plans to make a great nation, more children than there were stars in the sky from the miracle baby Isaac, even in Sarah and Abraham's old age. Isaac soon leads us on to Jacob, where I confess I sometimes struggle to tell that story to children. The idea of Jacob, who steals his brother's inheritance and tricks his own father, doesn't always go down well with the parents, but it is nevertheless an important part of the history of that new nation Israel, the name that God gives to Jacob, and the 12 tribes that come from his sons. Through Jacob's eyes, we learn a lot about God. Then, of course, we have the wonderful story of Joseph, reminding us that even when things seem to go horribly, horribly wrong, God can bring good things out of it. The story of Joseph seems like utter chaos at times, so many ups and downs. His brothers sold him off to Egypt, and he landed in jail for a time, only to end up sitting next to Pharaoh. I think for children, to whom the world seems very scary and very big, this story has a lot to reassure them about. Because in the end, you can always see God's guiding hand on Joseph, bringing great things out of his misfortunes. The next step, of course, is the Exodus from Egypt, and I personally love the story of Moses because he is such a scaredy cat in the beginning, and God has to persuade him to go out of his comfort zone and to lead the Israelites out of their comfort zones. It shows God's grace and understanding, as well as showing that he's more than strong enough to protect the Israelites from Egypt's armies. Moses then receives the 10 Commandments, of course, teaching the Israelites how to live well with God and live well with each other, something that all children and all people need to still learn. Joshua shows us how to trust with God, even when things seem strange. And then the story of Hannah and Samuel taught us how to pray to God as Hannah did, and then how to listen to God as Samuel learned how to. And after this, we finished off with David, everyone's favorite, and how God chose him for what was in his heart, not what was on the outside, and how David proved his trust in God by battling Goliath. You can see we went through quite a few stories and quite a long period of Israel's history. And I find that there's something very freeing and fun about exploring the Bible the way that a child does, acting out the story of Jericho with cardboard boxes for walls, and building Abraham's tent out of blankets and chairs, getting into the Bible stories as close as we can, and then going on to represent our faith with endless fondant icing on biscuits and making every combination of paper, glitter, paint, and glue that you could possibly think about. We do, after all, serve a creator God. I think our crafts that we do may end up being just as much an act of worship as they are tools for learning about the Bible. And then the stories that I tell in here after in the church are short and sweet, as I do my best to help the children to understand how this impacts them as a living faith and not just some fairy tale about people who are long dead. You can see the crafts that we've made up on the display board in the hall, but that really only shows you a tiny glimpse of the excitement and the joy and the fellowship that we've been blessed with every Wednesday. As Miriam often says at the end of a session, the children really enjoyed that. You could see that they were having fun and that they were really learning. Although it is geared towards, 5 to 10-year-olds, I have to say there is no age limit to Messy Church. And so I encourage you to come if you think that's something that you'd find yourself interested in. And do, of course, spread the word to other people who you think might enjoy. My thanks go to Sally Morgan, to Miriam, Elaine Hawkins, Barbara and Hannah for doing lots and lots and lots and lots of crafts. And Nigel, who does the food and refreshments, and Paul, who comes along to help clear up my messy activities. Because I've decided that it's not messy church if there isn't even a little bit of mess. And of course, I have to stand here and thank God, who has blessed us with a wonderful team of people, amazing children who really come and engage with the stories and with whom I feel I can share my faith in a very open and honest way, and with a very successful school year of Messy Church.